And good evening and welcome to the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. And you can also tune in on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and the 98.9 WXCO channel on YouTube to be able to watch the show as well. I am Chad Holmes along with Jason Foster on a busy and beautiful Wednesday early evening here in downtown Wausau. 1 week done, and I would say, Coach, real quick statement. We learned a little something, but I think there's still a lot to learn with high school football teams here in central Wisconsin.
Oh, definitely. It was great to see. It was just fun to watch both the games I've watched, the ones I've watched on film, some highlights I saw in other areas, just to see. You can tell the kids out there competing, kids with no experience kind of getting their feet wet and get truly, literally getting better every single rep as the game goes on, and those kids who kind of came in with high expectations, some of those kids grabbing some big numbers in week one.
Coming up, we will review week number 1 of the season, preview week number 2, and again, we have a couple of special guests. Coming up at about 6:25 or so, we'll be joined by Mosinee head football coach Kyle Stoffel after their win over Stratford. And you beat Stratford, you get a chance to talk about it. So we'll give Coach Kyle Stoffel that opportunity coming up a little bit later on in this hour. And then in the second hour, right near the top of the hour, after our news update, we'll be joined by Marathon senior Grant Salber. He had 11 tackles in the Red Raiders' 33-0 win at Pittsville. He is a three-sport athlete at Marathon, so we have able to talk to him about a great start to the season for Marathon, his other sports, and a whole bunch more as well. So that's all coming up in the next 2 hours here on the Big High School Sports Show. I guess we'll jump right into it. Week number 1, Wisconsin Valley Conference. I thought it would be good to talk about a game that we both saw. Can sound intelligent about because
get that out of the way early.
The Wausau West Warriors at Tom Field last Thursday night defeated Superior 42-21, a game that we had right here on 98.9 WXCO. Joe Gravine at quarterback was very efficient, 11-14, 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. The run game was stellar for West. Miles Walvogel, 11 carries, 125 yards in the score. Tayden Mua, 8 carries, 106 yards and 3 touchdowns. Shea Jones had 3 catches, 56 yards and a touchdown. Wausau West gave an early score, but then responded very well in the offense, especially those running backs. I was so impressed, especially with the vision of both those running backs. And I got to say, Tayden Mua was a bit of a revelation, the way that he ran the football for Wausau West.
Yeah, Tayden's been doing a great job throughout high school, so it was interesting to see if what he had been doing as a freshman and at the JV level last year was going to transfer into the varsity level, and at least for 1 week it certainly looked that. I think he has some really nice vision, moves laterally really well, and Miles had some really nice cutbacks as well, and I think Miles might be a little bit more of the downhill guy, kind of a nice little mix-up change-up. I thought that long run that Miles had on that second possession for West made a huge difference in I think it kind of set some people at ease a little bit, and everyone settled down and blocking got better and some nice things.
And especially in a game where a team like Superior had not won last year, they get the early lead. They come out, get the stop on 4th down. They take the ball, get that fast break offense going, score a touchdown. And I imagine they were not ahead a lot last year. And then to be ahead for one play, that had to be kind of a shot to the gut.
Yeah, I think tough for them for sure. But I think, honestly, it's probably at the end of the day a really good thing for Wausau West. Yeah. I think to come out and face a little adversity right off the bat. And what are we going to do when we face that first adversity? And they didn't have to wait very long. I thought the other thing, Joe Gravine did a really nice job of spreading the ball around. I think we had 6, 7, maybe 8 different guys caught passes. And then I thought the defense did what they should do against a team like that. Tough up front. I thought we kept the edge really well. I thought there was some really nice downhill tackling and certainly some things put on film that they can work on and improve for week 2.
And I wanted to mention Shea Jones as well, because he had 3 catches, but I thought all 3 were really good grabs. I mean, I was impressed. He's a big guy. Obviously, we saw him on the hockey on the ice during hockey season on the blue line, being a tough guy. He's a big kid, but boy, he had really nice hands, and those were not easy catches on a couple of those.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think when I think back to Shea Jones as a junior last year, most of his catches, and there's quite a few of them, were running wide open down the middle of the field. Put your hands up, catch it, keep running till you hit the goalpost, and he did a great job of that. I think these catches, he was running different routes. He was in some traffic, and he did a really nice job securing the ball and getting some yards after catch once he had it. So, yeah, it definitely looked like maybe a little different element to his game.
Also, last Thursday night, all the games that the Valley teams played were last Thursday. Interesting one, D.C. Everest and Rice Lake. Rice Lake came out early, took a 12-0 lead. It was 12-3 at halftime. Everest got a couple of touchdowns in the third quarter, went back and forth, and ultimately Rice Lake wins at 30-25. Jake Stasiak, the new QB for Everest, was 11 of 17, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Also added a 47-yard field goal that got them on the board right at the end of the first half. Corbin Enzenroth was the big ball carrier, 16 carries, 97 yards, and a touchdown. Our guest from last week, Xavier Edwards, had 4 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Aiden Schmidt's 13 and a half tackles. It was an interesting game. I was watching most of it. I went back and took a look at it early, in fact, into the third quarter. Again, that Rice Lake offense was just grinding it out, taking lots of time off the clock. It was 12-3. They took the ball to start the third quarter. They kept it for well over half the quarter, but then Everest got a stop. Then they scored. Everest got another stop. They scored. They also got the ball back on the kickoff, and then they didn't score. And I thought that may have been a bit of a turning point as well. But it was a tough start, but then as that game developed on the road against such a good program, obviously you don't want to lose the game, but at the same time, I think D.C. Everest, again, shows they're going to be very competitive against some good football teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I still think it's hard for people around here who don't know a lot about Rice Lake to understand how truly good they are. Definitely a small school, but a perennial powerhouse championship program for certain. And I think you did a really good job talking about their offense. They possess the football. They control the football. When you do that, you control the clock. And then you play really, really good defense. And that's what they do. And what happens against really good teams like DC Everest is you have a shot to win the football game at the end of the game, and that's exactly what they did. I think it was 25 or 17 seconds left when Rice Lake scored for the last time to go ahead. On the flip side of it, Everest came out, dealt with some adversity, played a tough game, had kind of probably figuring out who their ball carrier is going to be and what the new quarterback looks like. Xavier Edwards does what Xavier Edwards does, and probably feel really good about what Stasiak, I think is how they say that, did at quarterback. And this is exactly what happened to him last year, and I would say week 2 they made a huge jump and kind of never really looked back after that. So certainly not any reason to push the panic button for the Evergreens.
Not in August.
And probably the Rice Lake continues to put the rest of that side of the conference on notice that they haven't gone anywhere.
Stevens Point rolled in the fourth quarter to break open the game and defeat Chippewa Falls 43-15. It was a 22-0 fourth quarter for Stevens Point. It was 21-15 after 3. Trent Breitbach was 8 of 16. Not, nothing spectacular, but then 180 yards. When you average more than 20 yards per completion, that's always good numbers for a quarterback. He had 2 touchdowns. Also added 15 carries, 110 yards, and 3 scores on the ground. Isaac Yang had 6 catches, 159 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Stevens Point, again, there's some question marks because Stevens Point lost some productive players from a year ago, but Chippewa Falls is always a solid football team from the Big Rivers, and that's a good win for Smash, isn't it?
Yeah, I would definitely. And if obviously they played last year, same situation, and came away with a loss.
Yes,
so I think this is a nice turnaround for them. From being fairly new in this conference, what I've noticed about especially like a team with Chippewa Falls, and Everest had actually been playing Chippewa Falls week 1 or 2
right
before getting into this conference. So I feel like I've watched Chippewa Falls play for quite a few years now.
In August.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Chippewa Falls was one of those teams that actually plays better football at the beginning of the season than they do down the stretch. They usually get rewarded come playoff time as far as rankings go and then don't go very far with it. So probably a really nice win for Spash. Game looks certainly competitive early throughout most of it, but yeah, good win for Spash. Nice for our side to get another win in week 1.
Well, unfortunately, that were all the wins was Wausau West and Stevens Point. New Richmond, I was talking to some folks in the western part of the state Friday when I went to do my game over there, and there's some people that are talking New Richmond. They're thinking state title this year. In fact, they're that confident. They've had some really good sports teams in recent years, and they had a big night against Marshfield, winning 49-25. two quarterbacks for Marshfield. You had Ethan Femmel, he had 5 of 10, 94 yards and a touchdown, and Trevin Frice. And actually, Femmel is a freshman. He had some, I think he came on later in the game. Trevin Frice had 6 of 13, 45 yards. Hayden Carlson, 15 carries, 93 yards and a touchdown. New Richmond, they ran. And then they ran some more, and they kept running. 428 yards rushing on 41 attempts. And it doesn't take much math skills to realize that's more than 10 yards per attempt. Obviously, it was a tough night for the Marshfield defense. But, again, going over there, they must be tired of New Richmond by this point.
I would have to think so. I would imagine a lot of people are going to be. I think all you have to see in this one is 428 yards rushing on 41 attempts, and I think that right in and of itself is probably feeds into why they feel really good about where they're going to end up in that conference and what it might look like in the playoffs. I think a big question mark here is who is Marshfield? We talked about it last week. I think that there is some thought that they're ready to take another step forward. They've kind of been baby stepping. They haven't been as good the last few years as they had been prior to that. But then also having a freshman at quarterback at the end of the game, for whatever reason that was, that kind of probably speaks a little bit to maybe some growing pains they are going to experience early on. Although definitely a Marshfield name with that freshman quarterback, so I would imagine he's a pretty good athlete.
We talked last week to Wisconsin Rapids new coach Mike Krenz, and I think everybody knows it's going to be a process. Unfortunately, he had a long road trip to River Falls last week and had a rough ride back home, 45-0 for Rapids. But again, when you bring in a new coach, you bring in a new staff, you bring in a new system, there's going to be growing pains, isn't there?
Oh, there is, and there's going to be big growing pains, and there really is there's really not, with these crossover games and how it works, there's really no easy games. I mean, in a situation like this, obviously a lot of these games are scheduled a couple years out, but prior to being in these mandatory crossovers in this conference, having a new coach and a new program, you probably would have looked out and maybe try to find somebody a better matchup for week one. That's just not the case. River Falls is a really good team with a really good program, and Coach Krenz is going to learn a lot, and those players are going to learn a lot. I remember my senior in high school, new coach Mike Dressler, and he came in and we were all feeling really, really good about ourselves, and we were going to go beat the world, and we played an exceptional DC Everest team week one. So we went pretty quickly from thinking things were turning around and we were feeling great to losing 39-0 to the Evergreens. Came back and won 6 games that year. So there's definitely some good things on the horizon. I have a lot of faith in Coach Krenz, and definitely they'll learn a lot from week 1 to week 2.
And then, of course, in the Wisconsin Valley Conference are those two Big Rivers East teams, the two Eau Claire schools, and Eau Claire North put up 32 points. That sounds pretty good. You give up 54 to Menominee and lose 54-32. And then Hudson and Eau Claire Memorial. And I was saying that I actually watched this game earlier today in total because I'm going to be seeing Hudson tomorrow night here on WXCO. And they had to rally past Eau Claire Memorial 37-21. That was a game Memorial led 15-9 at halftime. It was 23-21 Hudson after 3. Peyton Pingle, good-looking senior running back for Hudson, 24 carries, 164 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cooper Adair, the quarterback, was 10 of 17, 140 yards, touchdown, but had 3 interceptions, but was very good on the ground, 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I think that Memorial is a much better football team this year, and I think Eau Claire North, we talked about them. I think there's some thoughts that they're going to be a better football team as well, but Menominee obviously must be a pretty good football team to put up 54.
Yeah, I mean, talk about traditional powerhouses. Menominee certainly fits that bill. Hasn't been there for a couple years to where they've been. Again, a little bit kind of what we saw out of Eau Claire North last year. They definitely had the ability to run a lot of plays and score some points, but defensively they struggled to slow people down. And I had opportunity to watch quite a bit of this Hudson-Eau Claire Memorial game as well, and it was interesting. I mean, Hudson, I think we put up in that upper tier of these two conferences combined, and they're going to be a really good football team. Tomorrow night's going to be a tough game for the Warriors, but they made quite a few mistakes that you don't usually see out of a Hudson football team. A lot of turnovers, a lot of bad snaps, a lot of playing from behind the sticks. and penalties. So kind of an interesting first week for them. They'll probably get a lot better in week 2. I would assume.
5 turnovers by the midway point of the third quarter, and they probably felt pretty fortunate to win the football game. You don't do that very often. You turn it over 5 times at that point of the football game, for sure. Great Northern Conference. Friday night, the game that we had here on 98.9 WXCO saw Wausau East defeat Westby 30-6. Xander Klein, the quarterback, had 243 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, basically all of it in the first half. Henry Moss had 3 catches for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns, 2 long touchdowns, 66 yards and 61 yards. Caden Meverden had 5 catches for 95 yards. Ian Stahl, 101 rushing yards and a touchdown. Basically, all the rushing yards came in the second half for Wausau East. Defensively, they were stout. A hook and ladder was the only touchdown for Westby. And my thoughts were it was a solid effort for Wausau East. I think, as you coaches say, there are some things to work on. But, again, I think, and as I said to you as well, this Wausau East team, over the last couple of years, not only have they moved themselves into the Great Northern, been able to make the playoffs, I thought they look more like football players. And you guys talk all the time, you coaches, about winning in the offseason, winning in the weight room. And I do think that this Wausau East squad, over the last couple of years, has started to get better in that part of the game as well.
Yeah, I think probably for the first time in a long time, when I say the first time, I mean over the last 2 or 3 years, they're starting to be a program again. I think you're exactly right in that. I think Coach Kramer has finally given that group some stability. They know what to expect. They know that if they want to accomplish their goals, they do have to get in the weight room. And it looks like they have a little bit of a blueprint. If early on this year, I mean, I would imagine they had some question marks going down to Westby because they replaced a lot of talent from that team they had last year. But last year, that offense, too, was based on big plays, and it seems like they have kind of continued that to start off this year, week 1, and have some guys who've stepped in and done some good work, and are going to move in the right direction.
Also, Mosinee earned their big non-conference win to start off the season, defeating Stratford 26-19. A big night all over the place for Treve Stoffel, and I think that's one thing we're going to be talking about a lot this year. The Mosinee QB was 13 of 18, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, added 52 yards and a touchdown on the ground, 10 tackles defensively, 2 interceptions. May have sold a couple of pops and bags of popcorn as well when he had a few moments. Mitchell Micklig, 3 catches, 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. They had a special teams score as well. And, every year teams change, and Stratford is not the same team. They could be a state championship team. We don't know at this point, but whenever you beat Stratford, whenever you beat a team that hasn't lost a game in a couple of years, that's a great way to start off the campaign, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is, and there's certainly some things, we'll talk to Coach more about it in a little bit, but there's certainly some things here that kind of point to where Mosinee was a couple of years ago. Obviously, a lot of their issues last year had to do with staying healthy and keeping guys on the field and having that depth, but when you look at, obviously, Treve has picked up where he left off from last year, offensive, defensive. When you start talking about special teams touchdowns and you start talking about some of these other names making these big plays a little more balanced, I think, that kind of puts that Great Northern Conference on in check, and that Mosinee's back.
Merrill had a tough one against Osceola. Last year, they went on the road to Osceola, earned a big week 1 win, but this time around, Osceola came to Jay Stadium, took a big lead at halftime, and then went on to win 35-13. Did not see any stats on this one. Maybe just trying to keep it under the radar a little bit. But I think that's got to be a tough way to start the season, because when you go on the road the year before and beat a team, then they come into your place, you probably have those expectations you'll be able to do it again. Right. And there's an early challenge for a coach and for the players for Merrill, isn't there?
Yeah, and we talked earlier about who you play week 1 and week 2. Osceola's a really good football program with a lot of history, so you give Merrill credit for scheduling that. I would say when we sat here a year ago, we were really, really surprised that Merrill had pulled that one off. So probably Osceola's probably back. Who knows where they were last year at that time this year, but Merrill certainly will be able to compare what happened last year to what happened this year, and them too look to make a big jump to week 2.
Well, Merrill looked to make a big jump on the road tomorrow night against Crandon, and Crandon faced a GNC team last week And Tomahawk earned a 42-6 win. Max Larson, 5 carries, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cash Olson, 303, 51 yards, and a score. Tomahawk's always been an intriguing program in that conference. I mean, you know that area of the state pretty well. They seem to have, they've got nice new facilities there. They've always seemed to be decent size for that conference, but they've never been able to put it all together. They've been, at times, making sparks. Yeah. I'm curious to see if they're able to build something there, because there is an opportunity for a school like Tomahawk in that conference, isn't there?
Right, and they're kind of at year 2 with the new coaching staff, and year 2 being back in that conference. We know they have a nice run of athletes right now, as evidenced by their state championship in hockey, and I think they're kind of heading in the right direction. I think that's a good week 1 matchup for them. Get some confidence as they roll into looking into conference play in 2 weeks.
Defending conference champion Medford, and everything that I saw, I heard Coach talking about it, that they lost a lot of talent, and there were some question marks. You have kids moving into new roles, and they ran into Holman, and Holman came into Medford and had 40-plus points in the first half, went on to win 56-16. Put yourself in the shoes of Medford. So much success recently, but then to have I guess you called it a bit of a beatdown in week 1. What's the message there?
I think same thing. Like, Holman's a darn good football program, and that's why you schedule them, because it's a good way to find out where you are week 1 or that early in the season, and what you need to work on going to week 2. I think Medford has a blueprint that works for Medford. When they don't have a certain number of athletes like maybe they've had in the past, that these are the types of things that you struggle with when you play a really good program. And I think in the last couple of years, Medford's given it to Holman, and kind of in that same regard. So I think those teams have been flow. I think the message to your team is, we know who we are. We know what our identity is. We pick ourselves up, we dust off, and we head to week 2. And we know in our conference we are going to compete. So you get better from week 1 to week 2, and you get ready for conference play.
And then, as a former Northland Pines coach, I'm sure you noticed this one, as Pines able to score a fourth quarter touchdown, defeat Antigo 21-14. And again, I mean, you and I both remember the Valley when Antigo was winning state championships in the Wisconsin Valley Conference with Gordy Schofield. It's just been a bit of a struggle for Antigo, and that's got to be a tough way to start the season as well.
Oh, absolutely. That's tough. I mean, you remember how Antigo was in the Valley, and rolling up with 22 kids getting off the bus and giving you everything you could handle. Northland Pines, it's a great win. They have a new coach. So what a great way for them to start off their season. I do also remember the first year, the 1 year only that Pines was in the Great Northern, and I remember that being a very much a running clock situation in the first half, or as they closed out the first half. So good for Northland Pines and Antigo too. I mean, we know they're probably not competing for a championship in this conference, but they need probably make a big jump from week 1 to week 2 and start competing.
Rhinelander fell to Ashland in overtime, 26-20. I was a little surprised, because Rhinelander, they did have a bit of a tough year in the conference a year ago. They only won 1 game. They beat East in the conference a year ago, and that was a bit of I think, an outlier based on their previous GNC results the last number of years. But Ashland pulled off what I call a bit of an upset. Miles Eagleson had 19 carries, 110 yards, and a touchdown for Rhinelander. But again, week number 1, you learn a lot. You play, obviously, in a game like that, you have a lot of big plays. You go right down to the nub and then some. But I imagine they would have liked to got back on the bus and headed to Rhinelander with the W. Yeah,
I think my takeaway from this one is I will be really interested to see the direction these two teams head moving forward. Is Ashland in a better spot? I mean, do they win some games this year? And yeah, I think you kind of, when you look at the mix of the Great Northern from top to bottom, you keep waiting for Rhinelander to kind of take that step forward. So it'll be interesting to see 2-3 weeks from now, when we got a couple conference games under our belt, where Rhinelander sits.
And finally, we saw Lakeland over at the scrimmage at DC Everest a couple of weeks ago, and saw some players that looked like players, and they showed it in their season opener, defeating Hayward 50-23. Declan McQuaid 10-14, 145 yards and 2 scores. Evan Zock, 5 catches, 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Michael Schettino had 15 rushes, 90 yards and 3 touchdowns. And it's not a shocker, because you saw some players on that field, didn't you?
Yeah, that was the very first thing. You talked about earlier about Wausau East looking like they have some football players. I've seen Lakeland quite a bit early in the season over the last at scrimmages and various things, and they've been in rough shape, numbers wise, size wise. That was the first thing I noticed at DC Everest a couple weeks ago was that Lakeland's got some guys, especially up front. They look like some guys who'd spend time in the weight room, truly have that size, and in that conference, I think that makes a huge difference. I think the other thing that really sticks out is I know we've talked a lot over the last couple of years about how Lakeland has really struggled to score points,
Right.
especially when they get to conference. Hayward, who knows? Hayward's probably not going to be a great football team this year, but got to feel good for Lakeland to have 50 in week one.
Absolutely. So that's the Valley and the GNC. We'll talk about more of the conferences, CWC Large, Merowith CWC, and the A player a little bit later in the program. But coming up next, we'll have our first guest for tonight. Later in the show, our student-athlete guest will be Marathon senior Grant Salber. But coming up next, the head football coach at Mosinee, Kyle Stoffel. He'll be in studio in 1 minute. This is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. On Thursday night, the Wausau West Warrior High School football team looks to make it 2 wins in a row to start off the season. The Warriors make the long trek to Hudson to take on the Raiders. Hear all the exciting action live on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. Wausau West Warrior football on 98.9 WXCO is brought to you by Sun Printing, the Wausau West Athletic Department, Wisconsin Valley Flag Football, the Wausau West Gridiron Club, Featherstone Cabinetry, and K5 Construction. It's Wausau West at Hudson in high school football. Thursday, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 on your home for Wausau West Sports. 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. It is the Big High School Sports Show, live on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And you can also, again, this year, starting this year, you can watch the show live on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and go to the 98.9 WXCO channel and be able to watch it live or even watch it after the show is done. So, again, adding to our reach here in 2025. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes, and very happy to welcome into studio once again the head football coach at Mosinee, Kyle Stoffel. Coach, again, really appreciate it when you make the trek here to our studios to be with us. I'm really glad to see you.
No, glad I could make it. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. I guess we'll jump right in. Actually, let's wait for the game itself. I want to always, early in the season, we've gone through practice, you've gone through scrimmage, and now you've gone through one game of the season. Has the first month or so, and of course you have off-season programs as well, but how is the first part of the season gone? Have you got what you expected from this group coming in to the start of practice and training camp and the scrimmage?
Yeah, I think we had great turnout this summer, so we kind of knew what we had coming in based on who played last year, JV varsity, who was coming back. So far, there hasn't been any major surprises either way, good or bad for us. I think everybody's coming to camp pretty much where we need them to be, ready to go. We did have one injury in the scrimmage that we needed a sophomore to step up on the line for us in the first game, and he did a pretty good job for us. So other than that, though, we've stayed healthy so far, and everybody's doing what they need to do.
Coach, talking about the offseason, I'm probably going to ask everybody this question this year from our coach's standpoint. The big difference this past offseason was the WIA's unlimited contact that you had the opportunity. What, if anything, did Mosinee do different this summer that they weren't able to do in the past?
It really didn't change what we did too much just because we have a lot of 2- and 3-sport athletes, so I know they're just, you know what I mean, there's only so many days in the week. We get them to the weight room and running 4 days a week, 4 mornings, and then basically what it allowed me to do is once a week we'd stayed after lifting, running for about an hour and a half, and then it also allowed us to coach at 7-on-7 versus just standing there like you're not doing anything. So adding contact days, we didn't really add that many. It just we used the opportunities that we were already doing to actually do more coaching.
How many years have you now been the head coach at Mosinee?
This is year number 4.
How have you changed as a coach since the first year as a head coach? Because you've been around football, obviously. But how have you changed as a head coach based on what you learned the first 3 years and now into year number 4?
I'd like to think I've mellowed a little bit. I don't. If you ask my players, they'd probably disagree with you. Well, it depends on the player.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But a lot of these kids, obviously I have a son who's a senior. I've been coaching some of these kids since they were 4 or 5 years old in 2 and 3 sports. So they know how I work. I know how they work. So I guess I haven't had to coach as hard, I think, and they know my expectations they're lofty on them. They've been used to that for a long time, and I'd like to think I've melded a little bit. I still get on when they need it, but I think that's the biggest thing is just I've got more comfortable in what we do. The kids understand how I want it done, and we go from there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to dig a little deeper into that too. We've talked a lot in the past about Treve and the dad-coach relationship, and I think a lot of people think about that and how special it is, and oftentimes we talk too about how that can be tough on the athlete too. But I think you made a great point, and talk a little bit more about it, is in those types of situations when you have a child, an athlete on the team, it's not just that athlete, right? It's their friends. So probably travel basketball, Little League baseball, you've probably been coaching and around that group of kids, many of them anyway, from the time they were 3 and 4. So does that kind of make all of those bonds a little more special in addition to just having your son there?
It does. And it's, I joke with the kids, when they started to get to 10, 11, 12 years old, it's, what I mean? I've been around you long enough. I'm going to start treating you like my kid. And they, they kind of look at me like, no. But no, there's a lot of those guys that between football, basketball, baseball, I've been around them a long time. I know them really well. They know me really well. And it's been fun to grow with them and to, to work the way up with them and finally get to where, we're at the varsity level and we're winning small games.
Brings up an interesting question that popped into my mind because you saw these kids when they were much younger. Is there an example of a kid that is, contributing right now for your team that maybe 6-7 years ago you may have saw as a little kid, you thought there's no chance this kid is going to be a major factor at the high school level, but has somehow worked his way up maybe beyond expectations? Maybe an example?
Well, I guess.
And not to say they were terrible or anything, but I mean, just because I bet you probably see, that kid, that just looks like a kid that's going to develop, or is that just not the case?
No, I guess Jarek Seeger would be the biggest one. He was undersized growing up, but the thing he was always a smart kid. He always worked hard. It was just, it was kind of one of those things, if he can actually put some size on, sure, keep working hard, and he's done that. I mean, from his sophomore year to his junior year last year, he made a huge leap. Especially defensive early, and then towards the end of the season, he was one of our go-to receivers. And this year, he's just continued to do that. He's become one of the leaders on our team. He's a captain. He worked his butt off all summer. He's getting through some injuries. He had some shoulder and hip issues that he played through at the end of last year. So he's still healthy going into this year. And he's a kid that, one of those kids that you expected. Yeah, he'll contribute, but he's. I'm not trying to bash what I thought he would be, but
no, I didn't mean it that way.
He's definitely come, a bigger part of our success than I thought he,
And I bring that up because I think that's a wonderful story that, if you work hard enough, if you have the right attitude, that you can just keep taking those steps and all of a sudden still be somebody that gets into a role at the high school level that maybe some folks would not have expected. Because as you said, some kids just develop a little bit later as well. And I think those are wonderful stories.
All right, Chad, I'm not waiting anymore. We're going to talk about Stratford.
I think it was time.
What a great win. I think that was, as I checked scores Friday night after the game and look at that was the one that jumped off the page. Not that I didn't think it was going to be a good football game, because it almost always is. Oftentimes comes down to the very last one, but to know that you guys gave it to them and pretty good. And it takes nothing away from Stratford. We know at the end of the day, Stratford's probably going to be near the top come the end of the season, but it had to be a really good feeling knowing who and what they've been over the last 5 years. To week one, when you talk about what you did all off season, what you've talked about in camp, what your goals are, where you want to be, to play a team like that and to come out with a victory. Talk about it, Coach.
That's a huge win for us. And I mean, like you said, Stratford's a phenomenal program, and I expect them to win a lot of football games this year. But just for us to finally, this is my 4th year as a head coach. This is my 7th year of playing them. We've tied them one time, but it's just we've never been able to match their intensity up front, their physicality. They just, they just kind of come out and they bully us in the past. And this year, I think we finally got enough guys that believed that we can hang with these guys, that, you know what I mean, we can push them around a little bit once in a while too. And early on, we kind of didn't give up any big plays. We kind of controlled the line of scrimmage the best we could, and prevented them from doing what they wanted to do, and that just gave us the confidence we needed to carry on throughout the game.
And something that kind of jumped out to me was that you did it with offense, you did it with defense, and you did it with special teams.
Yep.
I mean, that is the recipe to beating good football teams, isn't it?
Yeah. Defensively, we gave up, I think, 120 yards rushing or so, but, they had a lot of attempts. I wasn't displeased with that. We only gave up 40 yards passing. So, I mean, that's, they've got some athletes out there. So to do that, I was very happy with that. Offensively, we moved the ball pretty well. Some penalties, turnovers. I think it could have been a little more comfortable win than what it was, but we turned the ball over a couple times, and that's part of football. That's part of week one type of stuff. But hopefully we start taking care of the ball a little better and finishing drives a little better, and kind of coasted some wins, so I don't have to stress out quite as much at the end of games.
Yeah, I think when you look at years past in this, and you touched on it a little bit, is it's one thing to. I mean, the first thing we want to do as coaches is we want our kids to go out and compete. And you get into a game like this and you feel like you're competing in good things, but to be able to not only compete but pull out a win, not even pull out a win, have a fairly convincing win, that's got to do wonders moving forward into week two. What was your approach immediately after the game, and as you head into this week's prep? I'll let you answer. What was your approach?
Well, immediately after the game, it's just kind of a reassure the guys, like, see, guys, this is what we. This is why we tell you. This is what we want from you. If you go out and actually do it and, trust that what we're telling you to do and go out there with confidence, good things are going to happen. Going into this week, it's kind of been that's that roller coaster. You got a big win. You got to prevent them from thinking they're world beaters already after week one. You know what I mean? We're going over to play Menasha, which is, I think they're over 900 kids in their school. So, I mean, they're a solid Division II team. They've been in the playoffs for a lot, recent years. They took a hard loss in week one. I don't know how good Plymouth is, but no, we're not. The biggest thing is we got to keep working. You know what I mean? Yeah, we won. We played well, but there was a lot of mistakes that we got to clean up, and that's what we worked for this week, cleaning up mistakes.
Again, we're talking to Mosinee head football coach Kyle Stoffel on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. Let's talk a little bit about this team, and I'm going to start off with up front, because you brought up the point that this time around against Stratford, that a big factor was up front. How do you look at both your offense and defensive line? Who are some of the kids up front that are important in order to take the steps, number one in the conference? And I'm sure as well, up front is such a big factor when you do get to October.
So we do have two guys that were starters to start last year, Gavin Cliver and Brady Black. Both of them went through injuries last year. We lost Gavin, I think, week 5. Brady missed probably 3 or 4 games. But what that did is allow Dakota Olson, Marquise Pisecki, they were JV guys last year, but then they had to play varsity last year. So it wasn't ideal for us last year in the moment. I think they came up and did the best they could last year, but now, you know what I mean, they've got 5-6 games of varsity under their belt. So now it's, you know what I mean, they're confident in what they can do. Marquise is dealing with a little bit of an injury right now, but hopefully he'll get back. A couple other starters, Michael Matilla stepped up. He's a junior, big kid. He's getting better every day, but he held his own. And then we had a sophomore, Levi Burklaw, who stepped in and started in Marquise's place. Like you said, they're young. They're learning to play at these guys that haven't played varsity level, they got to learn to play at a varsity level. And obviously when you play Stratford week 1, those guys, they know how to play at a varsity level. You know what I mean? There's no
learn fast.
Yeah, it's coming at you. So it was a good experience for those guys to be able to go out there and get that experience and still win the ball game, even though we were dealing with some jitters and some early mistakes.
Similar question, but I love hearing about defense. So obviously we see Treve's name on both sides of the ball. That do you return a lot of guys on defense, and do you have a lot of guys who need to play both ways like Treve?
We do have a lot of guys that need to play both ways right now. 3 of our 4 defensive backs are starters on offense. Linebackers, we only have one. We're kind of using some guys one way. You know what I mean? We're doing the best we can to get guys off the field. Up front, a lot of those guys are two-way players too. And I don't mean this the wrong way, but right now our 2 interior defensive line, we don't really have that 1 or 2 guys that just have to be on the field all the time. You know what I mean? It's like, so we've got probably 5 or 6 guys when they're fresh, they can do the job. So it's every 2 or 3 plays, let's go, rotate. We got to stay fresh because the one drive that we did give up against Stratford, I think we left them out there a little too long. We got tired, and where we were normally holding our own, not getting pushed, all of a sudden we were going backwards, and you know what I mean? It was just that time of the game where everybody's getting a little tired and we got some push. So the big thing there is we just got to get a rotation going. Mitchell Micklig, we moved from middle linebacker last year. We moved him up to a defensive end. He's a strong kid. He can hold an end for us. Brady Black is playing our other end. And then we've got a sophomore who had a phenomenal game for us. We kind of use him to give those 2 guys breaks since they're playing offense. Braden McCodlow, big kid. He's about 6'4", 225 already. He's a sophomore. Came in, he had, I think, 4 tackles for loss and 3 sacks in his first game as a sophomore. So, yeah, he was happy. We were happy with that. So if we can keep him going in the right direction and progressing, we've got enough guys that if we keep him rested and keep him going, we should be all right on D.
And a big part of that is mindset, right? Like if you're a program who tries really hard to play 11 or as close as you can get to that, if you lose a guy or 2, it makes that much more challenging. But if you start from day one and that's the mindset that you're going to play a ton of football, kids probably buy into that, right?
Right, and that was last year. We didn't really have that situation. We had about, I think, only 13 or 14 guys that belonged on a varsity football field last year. So when 4 or 5 of those guys went down, we were scrambling. You know what I mean? We ended up probably losing a few games that I think we would have won. But injuries are part of football. That's not an excuse. That's just, it happens. This year, I think our depth is a little better. We're still not, we're not 20 deep, 22 deep or anything like that. But I think we're up to 15, 16, 17 guys that I'm confident putting out there and can do what we need them to do.
Offensively, playing a team like Stratford, they will obviously get those weaknesses up front, right out front. But you're able to run the ball, you're able to pass the ball. Is that, again, the way that you look at it, that you're going to be a multifaceted offense again this year?
That's always our idea, is to try to stay balanced. And obviously Treve helps us tremendously with that. He runs the ball so well. We run a little bit of, basically our main play is option. So if he's out there making the right decisions, it puts a lot of pressure on the defense. And once they, when they have to start putting guys in the box to stop our run or stop him from running, he's got a good enough arm that we can beat him with the pass. And we've got good athletes. We've always got the athletes to beat most of the teams we play. It's just once in a while we struggle with the guys up front, and right now it seems like we've got all that right now, and so hopefully we can keep rolling.
Yeah, when you can add in those special teams touchdowns, I think that makes a big difference too, week to week, if you could do that consistently.
Yeah, that was a bit of a, I don't want to say it was a fluke, but we were kind of expecting an onside. Yeah. So we actually had our hands team out there, which, you know what I mean? Which means we've got guys out there that have played a lot during the game that aren't afraid to go hit somebody. No, I'm not saying they did. Most of them stood around and watched. It was crazy. But you know what I mean? It was one of those where I thought he was going to go down. I told him to go down before he got hit. Lucky for me, he didn't listen. But no, that was Bryson Swikes. He'd always played football. He decided not to come out last year, so he didn't play as a junior. And then this year, he's continued to lift with the guys all summer, and he didn't even come out in the start. I think it was day 3 or 4, and he's like, hey, he wanted to come out. Luckily, he's a decent athlete. He's got good speed. It's like, we'll use you somewhere. Yep. So I guess returning kicks is where we're using them right now.
That's great. We talk a lot. We'll hear it a lot in college games this weekend, more football, and when we get to the NFL next week, always a lot to be made or said about the improvements you want to make from week 1 to week 2, right? You go out on week 1, you see somebody in a different jersey, you put it on film, and you get better. What are you looking to improve on the most this week from last week when you look at the team?
Biggest thing is obviously we got to eliminate turnovers. We had a couple of really big turnovers, one on a kickoff return where we fumbled, and they got it on the 1. Luckily, we stopped them. Mm-hmm. We held them out. That was huge. So we threw a pick 6 also. So that's, you know what I mean? That's just, those are game changers. The biggest thing is just offensive line, eliminate mistakes. We've gotten better. We just got to eliminate those little mistakes that maybe instead of getting 3-4 yards, now we're getting 8 to 10. So offensively, that's the thing. Defensively, I'm a linebacker coach, so I'm very hard on those. I expect a lot. We need to get better at reading. We need to get better at flowing downhill, just flying around. You know what I mean? We're still thinking a little bit too much instead of just reacting, and that's you know what I mean? That's just something that frustrates me. So we're working on that. Defensive line, just staying low, occupying blockers so my linebackers can flow. It's all just cleaning. Like I said, luckily there was no big glaring mistakes. Don't get me wrong, there were mistakes, but nothing that was like, oh man, there's no way we can fix that. So luckily, it's hopefully in the 2 days that we really get after it this week, we've worked on those and fixed them, and
And linebacker plays one of those. I coach linebackers too. Kind of that. That's the great thing about high school football is the incredible improvements you can make from day to day, week to week, or whatever. Because they're just, no matter how good of an athlete they are, there's just those little things that they pick up on it, or some things they watch through film make such a big difference.
And it's all about repetition. We've got some guys that are, stand in places they really haven't stood before. Their keys are different. It's just understanding what they're seeing in front of you, and it's just, I've played a linebacker a long time and coached it, and I stand back there, and it's like, what are you looking at? They're like, oh, he did this. I'm like, no, he didn't. It's like, and they try to question me, and it's like, you can try to, but I know what I saw. Now I need you to understand what you saw. And that's, you know what I mean? It takes a little bit. It takes a lot of reps. And when you got guys that are playing offense and defense, you basically get about 10 to 20 minutes of individual time a week with these guys. So it takes a little longer than I want sometimes, but we'll keep working at it.
You have one more non-conference game, and then into the Great Northern. And from the outside, it's always a very fun conference to watch. There's good matchups. It usually does not have the huge drop off because everybody's comparing. I mean, the team that won one game last year beat a team that was 5-2 last year in conference. You got Medford, who was the champ, who had a tough week one, but they're probably just laying low. What's your take on the league? Expect anything different from the Great Northern this year than what we've seen in the past?
I try not to, I go week to week. Sure. You know what I mean? It's fun to see, and I pay attention to what's going on. Some of the scores surprised me. Some of them didn't. Obviously, I knew Medford lost a lot, but they're usually really good at keeping 16, 17, 18 guys out per class. So they, you know what I mean? They just plug guys in. But like you said, it's very important that they got that running back that they can feed 35, 40 times a game. If they get that rolling, they're really hard to stop. So I'm not sure what's going on up there yet in that first game. Obviously, Holman's a Division I program, and they've kind of been on the up. They've been improving here. So I'm not going to read into that too much. I know their sophomore class is a phenomenal class, so maybe it's just taking those guys a little time to get used to varsity level. I don't know. I got about 8 weeks before I have to worry about them. But no, I know it's our conference. It's very, based on classes. It's a cyclical thing. Some groups they have a good 2 or 3 years, and then they drop off a little bit. But right now, I'm just hoping to avoid us being on the down. I just want to keep us up.
Yeah, I know this, for whatever reason, this really sticks out in my head from when we talked to Treve last year on the show. Very similar question, but Chad, I think, followed it up by asking, who is your favorite team to play, or who do you consider your biggest? And I think everyone assumes Medford, right? All the sports. I mean, Mosinee and Medford are often at the very top. And he talked about Wausau East. And so this is year 2. I know it was a tough loss against them last year. A lot of different reasons. A lot of things went into that. And obviously not looking too far ahead. But as a head coach, right, we do all the things in the offseason, but there are certain things that stick in our head in games we look forward to more than others. Is East one of those games? Are there some other ones you're really looking forward to on the schedule?
Yeah, obviously Medford's become the biggust rival because the sports that my kids have played most, football, basketball, baseball, it's usually come down to those two for the conference championship. Rhinelander gets mixed in there right now once in a while. But so Medford's probably on the top. I know the kids, the rivalry with Rhinelanders just they don't like Rhinelander. You know what I mean? Rhinelander doesn't like us, so I don't think that's anything that's going to surprise anybody. But East joining the conference is a whole new thing. That's one of those games that I think that's obviously stuck out in my mind from last year. That's a game that I felt, you know what I mean, different situations. I think that's a game that we should have won, could have won. Just things didn't go our way, but that's how it is. So that's definitely one circle on this year that it's like, nope, I want to be ready. I want to, you know what I mean? That's one I want to get this year.
Treve's a senior. For you as coach and father, and you've been through this for a long time now. Do you have any other kids after Treve that are coming through?
I have a daughter who's a freshman.
Oh, okay. But going through it for the last time with Treve, it has to be a special go-around, isn't it?
Yeah, it hasn't hit me yet. It will. You know what I mean? It's been a long, fun haul. It's gone quick. It's going to end way too soon. But he's decided he wants to keep playing football at the next level. We spent the summer, making that a possibility for him. He's got some offers out there. Some other, he's got some Division II offers, which is cool. He's got an offer from Winona, which is where I went. So it's kind of cool. No pressure. You know what I mean? I want him to decide where he wants to go. He's got some FCS schools that are looking at him right now. So hopefully he can put some good film down here in the first few weeks and maybe get an offer from one of those guys. Otherwise, we're excited to keep going, keeping our falls busy, chasing two boys around playing football.
Well, you're giving him a lot of film. He's out there a lot. And I guess one final question I have for you is, you've had a lot of success. Haven't had that deep playoff run yet. As you've looked at what's happened before, as you look at this year, what do you think it's going to take for your program to maybe take that next step? Because you've had some really tough games in the playoffs. Any thoughts on that? Because I'm sure that's something you probably had a few nights on the pillow thinking about.
Oh, that's obviously as a coach, you know what I mean? That's what you're out there to compete for. Conference championships are nice, but you know what I mean? State titles, playoff runs are what you really want for your team. That's what gets everybody excited. That's what they remember conference championships, but when you make that run in the playoffs, that's a big deal. And we haven't been able to do that. 2 years ago, thought we had one in the bag. Everything that could go wrong went wrong, but that's, you know what I mean? That's part of finishing. Last year, we weren't prepared to make a run last year in the playoffs with where we were at physically. So, this year I'm looking forward to us playing well all season, hopefully staying healthy. And I think if we can do that, we've got enough guys offensively that can hurt teams. Defensively, we've got enough guys, you know what I mean, that can slow teams down enough. And, obviously matchups are a big deal when you get to playoffs. It's helped that we've dropped down to Division IV a little bit, but now, you worry about some of those parochial schools that recruit well, if you get into that level 2, 3, 4 type of stuff. But, we'll worry about that when we get there. You know what I mean? First, we got to make the playoffs, and then, you know what I mean, take that week by week. But, I'm looking to have a successful year and maybe make a run towards the end.
Coach Foster, anything else?
No, I just wanted to say congratulations on a great win. That was exciting to see that. Look forward to many more of those. I also want to give you a lot of credit for what you've done in the program, but also this is always impressive to me too. Like I love the fact that in week 1 and week 2, when you could play, well, not anyone you want to, but you could really be open to doing different things, that you choose teams like Stratford and Monash. I think that speaks a lot to the mindset of your program and where you want to get down the road. So best of luck the rest of the year, and look forward to watching how you guys do.
Thank you.
Kyle Stoffel, the head football coach of Mosinee High School, coming off their win against Stratford, and they have Menasha coming up this week. Coming up, we have a news update for the top of the hour, and then we'll have our student athlete guest. We'll be talking to a Marathon senior, Grant Salbert, coming up. Marathon coming off a nice win last week, defeating Pittsfield 33-0. So that's coming up after the news update here on 98.9 WXCO. And welcome back. It is hour number 2 of the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. Online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, the Civic Media app, and also video streaming this year on the 98.9 WXCO YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com, search 98.9 WXCO, and you can see our YouTube videos as well. With former Wausau West and Northern Pines head football coach Jason Foster, I am Chad Holmes, and we're very happy to welcome in the studio our student-athlete guest for this week, multi-sport standout at Marathon High School, senior Grant Solburn. Grant, thank you for coming on over here tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
And again, a little bit tighter to that microphone. Sometimes you realize that we want to make sure everybody can hear you. But last week, your football team got off to a terrific start, 33-0 win over Pittsville. You had, I think, 11 tackles in the game. Obviously, when you start off the season, you get to practice, you go through the scrimmage, you're ready to get week one, to get off to a winning start. It has to be a big lift to you and the entire team. It must have been a fun Friday night.
It definitely was, especially when it's the first win of our new head coach, Coach Dinkle. But we didn't actually go into the year with a scrimmage. It got rained out.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
So you must have been bouncing off the walls to hit somebody in another jersey, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Was that real quickly? Was that was that hard to go into the first week without a scrimmage? You being a senior, you've gone through the process over the last number of years, and it's always the process. You start practice, you go for about a week and a half, you get a chance to scrimmage, and then you get ready for week one. It must have been a long grind to get ready for week one this year.
Yeah, it was definitely not easy going through the rain delay on the scrimmage, but I mean, with all the practicing we've been doing all summer since they allowed us to do a summer-long contact days, we've been doing a lot more, and that's definitely helped getting ready for week one.
Yeah, you mentioned the extra contact days and the new coach, Coach Dinkle. What a great way to start your coaching career with a big win. I always tell the coaches when they get their first win like that of the first game, it'd be a good time to retire with the undefeated career stats. But
unscored upon.
Unscored upon, yeah. So what are the biggest differences that you've noticed in the program? Obviously, the unlimited contact played a role in it, but what is some of the things that are different that you've really enjoyed so far and that you feel have made a difference?
What I've really enjoyed so far is definitely the more contact days and earlier start on full pads, and that just gets a really a really good jump on the start of the year. And some differences I've noticed is that we're after Friday games, we're going to start doing some lifting and film review of the game to figure out what we can do better and what we did well.
What do you find from film review yourself? Is it something that is different for you? And is it something that you have to learn to not just watch it, but to actually get something out of it? Because I imagine you can watch it and maybe not get something out of it. Is it a process to make sure that you're able to get the most out of watching film? Because it sounds like it is a little bit something different this year.
Yeah, it's definitely different this year because through the past years we didn't have like a full-on film session, but we were allowed to access Huddle through our Chromebooks and phones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely nice to have the coaches like talking through the film with us. And what they've the perspectives they have from the sideline and from the booth, it's a really good different just a different perspective to see and see yourself on film. And
no, it's just very it's another tool to help you in terms of your play.
Yes.
So big win last Friday night. Tell me about that. Like, what was the environment like? Was there seemed to be a little more hype having a new coach going into it? What was it like during the game? And then what was it like in the end zone after the game when the team was rallying, big win, and coach kind of giving his first victory speech? Walk us through that a little bit.
Well, it was definitely a good, a really fun, build up to it. Like the bus ride was just, with Pittsville it being farther away, everyone's just in their own mind getting ready. And then in the locker room, everyone putting pads on and getting fully ready for the game, mindset and all. And then when we got onto the field, it was definitely a very, very fulfilling moment. Like first game of senior year, it's definitely very emotional. And with the new coach, it's it like just leading up into his first game of this year and through his whole coaching season.
I remember when Coach Dinkle was a player, and I remember he was a heck of a football player. What is his demeanor like? Is he kind of does he have a lot to say? Is he pretty fire up and pretty emotional, or is he pretty even keeled?
I say that varies depending on the plays. Like, obviously with like the multiple touchdowns, he was very fired up and happy for the team. And then at halftime, he's more calm and saying like, that's a great first half and keep pushing through and keep fighting through the pain and don't let up on the gas.
Again, we're talking to Marathon senior Grant Salber here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. I mentioned you had 11 tackles. What position do you play for those folks who haven't seen you play?
Defensive line, mainly at tackle, but I've been switching in at strong and weak end. And I don't doubt that I'll keep switching out throughout the year at ends and tackle.
What do you prefer, inside or outside?
Probably inside.
Inside.
What would you say your strength is on the field? What do you do well?
Quick, since I'm a smaller like D lineman and lineman in general, quickness against the other, like the bigger guys, and then that allows me to get my hands on more frequently and drive. And that definitely helped me with the 11 tackles.
Yeah, what was the key on Friday? Because up front, that's so often the line are supposed to basically engage and then let those linebackers get the tackles. You had a lot of tackles. That's very impressive for a lineman. What was working for you on Friday night in your matchups?
Yeah, I was definitely getting my hands on and a lot like being able to shed the block quick when I realized where the ball was going. And then if I can't shed the block, then I just set up a good position for the linebackers and the rest of the defense.
Are you guys running the same defense this year that you ran last year, or did Coach Schinkel switch that up a little bit?
I think he switched it up a little bit, but more or less it stays the same.
Okay, you mentioned kind of playing those different positions. Who are the other guys on your defense? Who do you like playing with? What are some of your teammates that you want to throw some light on for us?
So for the first, like the starting defense was Cassius Ninabuk at strong end, me at the strong tackle, Tate Sonentag at the nose tackle, and then Drew Wolfel at the quick tackle. And then some subs were Hudson Voigt and Mitchell Zemke at the tackles. And then when those two would go in, then me and Tate would switch out to the ends.
Who else on the a squad are considered leaders? Because do you consider yourself a leader as a senior? Who are the leaders for this team, and what do you think as a senior that you need to provide with your experience? Because you're a multi-sport guy. How do you look at your role on this team starting off your senior season?
Well, I believe everyone on the team is a leader, and that the seniors especially should lead by example. Like not getting upset on a bad play or not like losing their state of mind if something goes wrong, or if something goes right, not getting too excited.
Mm-hmm.
But the captains for Friday night's game was Truthers, Drew Wolfel, Cassius Ninabuk, and Landon Snyder were the captains for that game. But I do believe that in the right state of mind, anyone can be the captain on the team.
I like it. So, new coach, probably some new things, offensive, defensively, a lot of extra stuff in the summertime, it sounds like. What do you guys do to kind of build that the sense of team and that togetherness and that? There's some extra things coach kind of does with that as far as leadership goes and trying to build that culture and team chemistry?
As far as leadership goes, everyone like just hangs out together in the locker room and outside of practices, like the team meals on Thursday nights. Everyone should go to them, but we try to get everyone out there as much as possible. And they're hosted at many people's different like houses or different spots around town. And then after the game Friday night, we had a good amount of people going to Buffalo Wild Wings to eat and celebrate after the game.
Let's step away from the football field for a moment because I mentioned that you're a 3-sport athlete, wrestling and baseball. None of your coaches are listening right now. What's your favorite sport?
That's a tough one.
I know, that's probably the toughest question you'll get tonight. If you don't have, maybe I can put it a different way. What are the differences? Maybe some of the things that you like about each of the football, wrestling, and baseball. What do you like best about each sport, and what draws you to those sports? Maybe let's start with football. What draws you to football?
Football, it's definitely the heavy contact and the state of mind that you have to be in, and just the love of the game, really. And for all sports, it's just the love of the game.
Is there anything particular about wrestling that drove you to it?
For wrestling, my friends brought me into it, and I guess I've just stuck with it with them throughout like 10 years of doing it.
And what about baseball?
For baseball, baseball is definitely like really fun because a lot of my friends are in it, and I've been in it since t-ball, so it's just that for most of these sports, I've been in it for so long. I've just grown to love the game so much that I just can't see any other way of not doing it.
So it sounds like sports are a huge part of your life, which is awesome. And as a result, you probably spend a lot of time in the weight room. And you mentioned the contact days. When you're not doing anything specifically for any of those 3 sports, what do you like to do in your free time?
In my free time, hang out with my family and my dogs.
How many dogs you got?
2.
What are the names?
Max and Darby.
And what kind of dogs are they?
They're both beagles.
Oh, very nice. What's your favorite class?
Other than gym class and shop classes, I would probably say math because it's I pick it up really quickly and it's a good challenge most of the time. And it's just like a good challenge for me, and I really like it.
Do you have a plan for after high school?
After high school, I applied for NTC for manufacturing design, and it's dealing with like CAD formations and designs like that in the CAD formations.
So often when we talk to multi-sport athletes, one of the questions we like to ask is, how do you balance your time? Because you have so much involved in sports, but then you also have school and also being with your friends and being with your family, being with the dogs, and just having fun is part of growing up as well. How do you try to balance everything out? Any little bit of advice for folks that are trying to balance out, especially with 3 sports? I mean, that's a lot on your plate.
It's definitely not easy, but most of the time when I'm with my friends, it's in sports. But if I'm not, it's probably just when I'm hanging out at their houses, just playing games and stuff like that. With my family, it's mostly just like after practices or in the mornings. And family with the dogs as well.
Sure.
We talk a lot on the show about rivalries. One unique thing about football in the state of Wisconsin is your football conference isn't the same as your other conference for your other sports. Some of them are some of the same teams, but they're not exactly the same. So when you talk about football, who's your favorite team to compete against?
Favorite, probably it would definitely be Auburndale because it's it's like a fun rivalry between us within the past few years of the close games, and it's just really competitive between us. And it's the same for like others, especially wrestling too. It gets really competitive with them.
Do you know, and I know through wrestling you probably do for sure, but do you know quite a few athletes and student athletes at Auburndale?
Not a lot. I've definitely heard of a few of them that are like really good, but as much as I hear, I can't remember their names.
That's probably a good strategy too. Don't have to worry about it.
Well, let's talk about Friday's game, because that is always it's a big game. Whenever you face Auburndale, even if it's a non-conference game, it's a big game. They've had a really good run in football the last few years. You said it, the marathon went to Auburndale and let one kind of slip through the fingers a couple of years back. What have you seen so far in your preparation? You talk about the film work that you're doing. What do you expect on Friday night? What are the things that your team has to do?
Stuff we have to do is definitely stay in the right mindset of not getting too far ahead. Not getting, if we're getting ahead, not to let it slip through our fingers like it did the last few years, a few years ago, and definitely not be too excited or too upset about the little things. And I believe it's going to be a really great game, and the best team will come out on top.
So you guys had a really good win last week. We talked a lot with Coach Stoffel from Mosinee when he was here. They had a really nice win against Stratford, but had some things they needed to work on. He talked about some turnovers and some alignment and responsibilities on defense and execution on offense. You guys had a great win, right? 33-0. One of the things when I was a head coach, I used to tell our coaches and our players is no matter how good or how bad things went in a game, it's never as good or bad as you thought it was. So 33-0 feels great. Coach tells you, great job, great first win. You go to Buffalo Wild Wings and celebrate. When you come back and look at the film from last Friday, were you guys able to identify some things that you still needed to work on and improve going into week 2?
Yeah, there's definitely a few things. On offense, there's a few missed assignments, a few missed pulls, and a few wrong. There was one where someone took out a guy from our team. And
that must have been fun to see on film.
It was. Everyone in the room was.
Little laugh, but not too loud for the coach to hear.
But yeah, after, when we review film, there's always at least something to work on or review.
Coach, anything else before our final question?
No, congratulations on a great win. Coach Chad will have another question for you, but really exciting to see you guys have a great start. Really looking forward to the Auburndale game and then getting into conference moving forward.
All right, thank you.
We always ask our student-athlete guests, and especially those that are seniors and especially multi-sport people, because you've gone through the process. You've gone through everything, and now you're starting as a senior. But if there's somebody in your football program or your wrestling program or your baseball program that's just a freshman, just starting their journey in the high school ranks, based on what you've learned, what piece of advice would you give a freshman who's just starting their athletic journey at Marathon High School that maybe you found out over the years?
Definitely do the little things right, because if you do them wrong, habits don't die easily. And listen to the coaches, because they always have something a good perspective to say, and it just makes your whole season easier if you just try not to make your coaches too mad.
No, as a coach, that's probably
good
true,
advice.
Right?
Good advice.
Grant Solber, again, congrats on a terrific week 1. Congrats on all the success you've had in your sports at Marathon, and best of luck as you begin and go through your senior year. We appreciate you coming on by.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So we're going to come back and continue our recap of week 1. We're going to preview week 2 on the high school gridiron coming up as well. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. On Friday night, the Newman Catholic High School football team inaugurates Balliet Field after its renovation. The first ever Friday night lights at Newman Catholic as the Cardinals play host to Wild Rose. Hear all the exciting action live on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. Newman Catholic High School football on 98.9 WXCO is brought to you by Sun Printing, the Newman Catholic Athletic Booster Club, and Wisconsin Valley Flag Football. It's Newman Catholic hosting Wild Rose Friday night. Pregame show at 6:35, opening kickoff at 7 p.m. on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. And again, may as well just be a broken record because we say it every week, every year. The best part of the show is when we get a chance to talk to our guests. And we had a terrific coach guest in Kyle Stoffel and a terrific student-athlete guest in Grant Solburn. Again, you always learn something, too. That's one of the things. It's wonderful to hear the perspective of these people that are going through it.
Right. And it's great to talk to kids who experience it differently, right? Like some kids are coming in and they've been the star in all the sports for all the time and kind of have that little bit of a swagger to them. And sometimes it's kids who are great athletes and do great things, but are probably a little bit more behind the scenes. So kind of great to talk to both. And I also really like hearing, it's great talking to the coaches about how things are going, but I kind of like hearing from kids about what they think about how coaches are going. So brand new coach at Marathon. Great to hear Coach Dinkle's heading in the right direction.
Let's talk about their game last week because we have not got to the CWC Large and Merriwood CWC, and most of the games were crossovers. There were a couple of teams in the CWC Merriwood that were not crossovers, but a number of crossovers between what you call the large schools and the small schools. And one was Marathon and Pittsville. And Marathon defeated Pittsville 33-0. Truthers had a massive night, 15 of 18, 256 yards, 2 touchdowns. Fred Tylinski had 4 catches, 125 yards. Javier Pintor, 9 rushes, 77 yards, and a touchdown. And Pittsville just 102 yards of total offense in the game. But, I mean, again, Truthers is last season, one of the main problems Marathon had was when he was out for about a month. When he's on the field, he does so many things so very well.
Yeah, we talk about the show and week to week, and there's just names that we say over and over again, what seems like for years now. Treve Stoffel at Mosinee, Truthers at Marathon, the Butts, all of the names at all of the schools.
And they tend to be multi-sport guys, too.
They do, multi-sport, and more often than not, just really, really, really good kids, too. So it kind of easily explains why these programs have the successes that they do.
Wittenberg-Burnhamwood beat Bondwell 33-13. I have to admit, I was surprised because we talked about the fact that Wittenberg-Burnhamwood lost their quarterback in preseason, hurt the knee, had to move a receiver to quarterback who had not played quarterback, and yet they were able to beat a good football program. Caden Yeager, 9 rushes, 163 yards, 3 touchdowns for Whitburn. But, man, I mean, that's impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, Bondwell, the Bears, that's a good football program. I think you had me snookered a little bit on this one, that when you talked last week about that, I was
snookered myself.
I was going to say, I was really surprised when I saw the score. For sure, I thought it would be closer and a great win for Whitburn.
I would have been surprised if it was 33-13,
right,
Bondwell.
The other way, right. So, no, I mean, what a great win for them to start and give them some confidence with their new quarterback and moving through, and 9 rushes for 163 yards. I think that speaks probably well of their offensive line as well.
Amherst beat St. Mary Catholic 47-14. I did not find any stats for this one, but I would assume that their multi-talented, faceted quarterback was running the ball and throwing the ball because that's what Amherst does every year. We had Loyal Greenwood beat Abbotsford in Abbotsford. I was surprised by this game. Loyal Greenwood had a struggle last season, but they went to Abbey, won 24-12. Chase Bowler, 10 carries, 97 yards, and a touchdown. Abbotsford ran the ball not as well as they normally do.
Not Abbotsford.
No, 217 yards, which is not bad normally, but for them, that's about half what they normally get on 35 attempts. Did not pass the ball very much, 38 yards, but I got to say, Loyal Greenwood, I said I did the Loyal game against Marathon last year. They had some pieces, and again, they're in that tough CWC Large, so sometimes you could have a pretty darn good football team, and sometimes, boy, the opposition is very difficult, but I really was surprised by that score.
I would agree. That was one that kind of popped off for me, too. I've been very accustomed to coming on Wednesdays and talking about how well Abbotsford has run the ball and how balanced they are in that attack. They usually have 2 or 3 100-yard rushers. So when you look at the rushing attempts and that the yardage was down a little bit, but then at the same time they only attempted 5 passes, that was a rough night offensively.
Some other scores: CWC Large, Auburndale beat Spencer Columbus in a very competitive game, 35-27. Wyatt Fremont in what must have been a fun game to watch, edged Berlin, 41-40. And Colby who had some ups and downs, and maybe more downs than ups a year ago, had a good start. Never easy to go to Stanley Boyd, and they did it and won 29-12, and they ran the ball. You talk about running the football. Luke Canula, 28 carries, 228 yards and 2 touchdowns. Chase Heeg, 25 carries, 184 yards and 2 touchdowns for Colby, who had 414 yards on 56 attempts, 450 to 149 edge in yards. A couple of years ago, that was Colby's modus operandi. Running the football, pounding you. Last year, they didn't really do it as well. Looks like maybe Colby is going to be back in the mix in that conference.
56 attempts running the football. That is a tough program to be a receiver in.
Merriwood CWC, Edgar beat Ladysmith 44-6. Maverick Butt, 16 rushes, 111 yards, 3 touchdowns, 47 rushes, 320 yards as a team, 347, 129 edge in yards. Edgar getting ready for Stratford, off to a good start.
Yeah, crazy when you talk about teams and programs and legacies. The thing that jumps off the paper when I look at this is that they gave up 6 points, and I can't imagine the coach was very happy about that.
Iola Scandinavia beat Shiocton. Jensen Rice, a kid that we've talked about over the last couple of years, 89 yards passing, 65 yards rushing, as Iola Scandinavia earns a W, and they're always hanging around there in that conference. You got Edgar, you got Auburndale, and usually right there as well as Iola.
Yeah.
8-player. Newman Catholic made a long road trip last week on Thursday night. Defeated Florence 33-0. Quincy Fender, 12 of 17, 159 yards. Cooper Gould had 5 catches, 75 yards. Tristan Fisher, 15 rushes, 89 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And the number that was big, of course, Florence, 0 points, 0 first downs.
Yeah.
And I was talking to some of the coaches over there today. Let's get another shutout this week. Let's have 0 first downs allowed all season long. No, but, I mean, you don't see that very often.
Oh,
and
gosh,
Florence
no.
won the state championship 2 years ago. Again, they're not the same team, but still a long trek and a good win for the Cards.
Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out a little bit to me is 1 or 2. It seems like a couple of years since we've talked about them being healthy. They appear to have a nice start to that, and I also really like when I look at, it seems like they have some kids who can do some different things. Like this, Quincy Fender back had a really nice game, and then you look at 5 catches, 75 yards, 15 rushes, 89 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So going to be able to spread the ball around a little bit this year.
Other CW8, this is Central Wisconsin 8 conference games blowouts. Sevastopol 66-8 over Wild Rose. Siren beat Port Edwards 46-6. Tri-County 62-0 over Elko White Lake. Alman Bancroft, who I think is the team that Newman is going to be going head-to-head with, and they got a game next week at Alman, which is going to be a massive game in that conference. They started off with a 43-8 win over Abundant Life St. Ambrose. And Rosholt, their first ever 8-player game, they beat Marion Tigerton 34-28. Rosholt this year actually is playing a lot of the CW8 squads, including Marion Tigerton. They're not playing Newman, though. They avoided them, but Rosholt off to a good start. I'm curious. I'm always curious when these new schools come in, how they do. And Rosholt is a program that had struggled in the CWC Merriwood, and now maybe a new life in 8-player football.
Yeah, I think we talk about that even in some of the 11-man teams when they go from one conference to another and have the ability to gain some confidence. We mentioned that with Wausau East. So good for Rosholt. Tough decision, I'm sure, for that school and that community to do that, but good for them to make that transition and start off with a good win.
Northwoods East, Athens gets off to a very good start. They actually struggled last season winning football games, but they had a big win against Prentice, 54-6. Phillips, who had lost only 1 game last year, but unfortunately for them, they have too many students to be in the playoffs, and that's the same case this year. They defeated Shawamigan Butternut Mercer 52-8. Rib Lake had a coaching change, and actually I found some information out about this because I said, what's going on with Rib Lake? They forfeited to Hurley last week, but they're going to start playing this week. They had a very late coaching change, and the old Athens coach, what was his name, is the new head coach at Rib Lake.
Oh.
So they brought him in, and he's going to be coaching, and Rib Lake will be on the field starting this week. The defending state champs, Owen Withy, lost to Gilman 43-0. And that was, again, Gilman is outstanding. In fact, last season, one of the big controversies, the original 8-player playoff bracket that was announced on TV, they had Gilman in it. And Owen Withy, Gilman was in it, and then they realized there was a mistake, and they were like the last team out.
Oh.
So they were upset, and they took it out on Memphis, defending state champs,
They
43
seemed
nothing.
upset.
McDonald, who's a team that is going to be one of the teams to watch, an 8-player this year, is their final year an 8-player as well. They're going 11-player next year.
That is not something I knew.
They're growing. That school is growing, in fact. I think one of the reasons is they're going to be too big to be in the playoffs, I think, starting next year, because they're actually doing pretty well with the enrollment there, but they
Good
beat
for them.
Alma Center Lincoln 59-24, Thorpe over Prairie Farm 26-18, and Lake Holcomb beat Cornell 28-0. So that's the 8-player scores from week number 1. We're going to take a 1-minute break, and then we're going to look ahead to week number 2. Yep, week number 2. Football season goes quickly. Only 9 regular season games. You start going fast. So we're into week number 2, and we'll talk about that coming up next as we continue on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO.
Are you passionate about local high school sports? So are we. WXCO 98.9 FM is proud to be the only station in Wausau bringing you live, play-by-play coverage of high school sports, game after game, season after season. But we can't do it alone. We are currently seeking local sponsors and community partners who believe in the power of sports to bring people together, inspire youth, and energize our hometown pride. Promote your business, support our local athletes, be heard by thousands of loyal local listeners. If your business is interested in supporting live sports broadcasts while gaining valuable exposure, now is the perfect time to become a WXCO sports sponsor. Message us on our Facebook page or call or text our sales rep, Aaliyah, at 608-573-1597. That's 608-573-1597. Let's keep Wausau High School sports on the air together.
It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app, and on our YouTube channel, WXCO's YouTube channel at youtube.com. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes, and let's talk week 2. And like last week, plenty of action on Thursday again this week. That's going to change starting next week. But once again, all the teams in the Wisconsin Valley / Big Rivers East are playing Thursday night games. I will be heading to Hudson. Excuse me. Yeah, I put it down wrong on my. I think if you were looking at my sheet, because I put the schedule down, and somehow in my mind I had Superior. And it was like nightmares because
you're classically conditioned to take an annual trip up to Superior.
I was going to say Hudson, but I look at my sheet, it says Superior. No, it is at Hudson, and Hudson's a long trip, except if you're thinking you're going to Superior. But Wausau West at Superior, Wausau West at Hudson tomorrow night, 6:35 airtime, right here on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. I think this has the potential of being a very interesting football game.
Yeah, I think it's really a great matchup for both teams. I think West had a pretty easy victory over Superior last week, who I think most would agree is not going to be a great football team this year. And Hudson kind of scuffled a little bit against an Eau Claire Memorial team that most people thought might be improved, but probably Hudson would still get the better of. So I think both of these teams are looking to kind of find their identity still. Is Hudson going to make a big jump and clean things up from week 1 to week 2? And at Wausau West, can they continue what they did against probably a lesser Superior team against a stronger Hudson team?
I'm curious to see how the Warriors run the football. They ran it so very well last week against Superior, and Hudson shut down completely the Eau Claire Memorial run game. Memorial threw the ball pretty well. I think it must have been 75% completions. I did not have numbers on it, but watching it, it was very impressive. But I think Wausau West will have the capability of throwing the football. If they can run it as well, that could be good news for the Warrior offense.
Yeah, I would agree. I think when I watched what Eau Claire Memorial did last week compared to what West did, not apples to apples because of the quality of the defense, but I felt like West's running game was probably better. I think their backs are a little more suited to the defense that Hudson was playing than Eau Claire Memorial was. So I think it'll be a good matchup and definitely a bigger challenge for the Warriors.
DC Everest will have their home opener tomorrow night at Steam Stadium, hosting River Falls. Another really good non-conference matchup for DC Everest. Last season, they kind of sparked their year. It was a game that was played in the afternoon because of potential bad weather. They went over there and they ran the ball for like 500 yards against a very good program that River Falls is. And you know that River Falls is going to be ready for whatever Everest throws at them, and that has the makings of another really good matchup.
Yeah, I think, too, when you talk about Everest rushing the ball for 500 yards last year, I think just based on week 1 numbers, maybe Everest doesn't have the bell cow that they had last year. I'm sure they're going to be fine. There was a
younger Bankston who got some carries last week, I saw.
Yeah,
you
so
never know where that's going to start.
Exactly. But I think for sure DC Everest is looking to get back on the right track. I would imagine Spash winning week 1 and being 1-0 is probably also little bit of a fire underneath them. Not that they would have needed that, but I think this should be a good matchup. River Falls is a good football team, had a good week 1 win, and look to kind of probably come and get a little revenge against the Evergreens from last year.
Spash is at Superior. One thing I'm going to say about the trip to Superior is they really fill that stadium. Last couple of years when Wes went up there, and I was watching the Hudson Eau Claire Memorial game, and the Hudson announcers were talking about last year when they went up there that it was packed for that game, and they didn't win a game last year. I love that they still come out and support their school, support those student athletes, and again, that's got to help when a team like Stevens Point comes into town.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously it has not had a large effect over the last couple of years, but that is certainly Superior's advantage in this conference is home games, both their crowd and the long trips that teams have to take to get there. And it doesn't get any longer than Stevens Point to Hudson, or now you got me doing it, to Superior. So unless something crazy happens, I would say you'd put your money on Spash in that one.
Yeah.
But it'll be a challenge just because of the trip.
And Superior challenges teams with that fast break offense. Yep. I mean, you saw in the first series last week, it took Wausau West a series because that first series, Superior made it look pretty easy.
Yeah, and it gets you back on your heels. And that's the idea behind it, right? You make the defense uncomfortable, you force them to do things, you find out what they're not doing well, and you keep attacking it without them having the opportunity to fix it. Spash, that game was competitive for a while last week, so I mean their defense didn't completely shut down Chippewa Falls, so maybe Superior can get a little bit rolling. But it does appear that Spash is kind of back and poised to compete for a conference championship this year.
You talked earlier about now with these required crossover games that sometimes it can be pretty tough. And for a team like Wisconsin Rapids coming off a game against New Richmond now, you would think, it can't be any tough. Oh, it wasn't New Richmond last week. It was River Falls. Yeah. It can't be tougher than that, can it? It's going to be tougher than that because Rice Lake comes to Wisconsin Rapids at Southwood County Field tomorrow night.
Yeah, the biggest challenge with a team like Rice Lake is how they run the football. And it's not just how they run it, or it's not just that they run so much and have so much success. They run the option. And that is I mean, maybe Rapids has an advantage there since they've seen it so much in practice the years.
They know what the mindset is.
Exactly, or how to shut it down. And I think Coach Krenz said last week that their defensive coordinator is a guy who remained on staff. So that might be the one area that maybe the familiarity might be what they have going for them. But it's really, really hard when a team like Rice Lake gets going running the ball and you can't stop it. That is a rough feeling, and I've been there. Actually, I've been there against Rapids doing that. So, so they will definitely have another challenge in front of them this week.
Another matchup tomorrow night. That's one that got historical aspects to it because how many times did Menominee and Marshfield play for either like in a state semifinal or something like that? I mean, you talk about terrific football programs over the years that made deep runs, had massive matchups, and tomorrow night it'll be Marshfield, their home opener against Menominee.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there, and I think that this game is very interesting to me because I think how good was Eau Claire North when Menominee beat them last week tells us a little bit about that. is Menominee truly back, and who is Marshfield? Do they bounce back? So I think this game is going to kind of, like we're going to say a million times over the next couple weeks, but I think this game kind of starts to paint that picture of what these two conferences look like and where these teams kind of fit into that puzzle.
And then the Eau Claire schools in the Valley. New Richmond is at Eau Claire North. Eau Claire Memorial at Chippewa Falls. And again, the thought was Eau Claire North had the potential of being better. New Richmond is an exceptionally tough opponent. And I'm curious to see if Memorial shows again some of the, I thought, gumption they did not show a year ago. They did not look like they wanted to play football a year ago. They looked like they wanted to play football against Hudson. And Chippewa Falls, of course, had a bit of a rough start against Stevens Point.
Yeah, I think so. I guess personally, if we were talking about the two Eau Claire schools, which one we thought might have taken a step in the right direction, I probably would have leaned to Eau Claire North, and there's a lot of football to be played, so that could certainly be the case. But Eau Claire Memorial had a nice showing last week against what we believe to be a very good Hudson team, and Chippewa Falls maybe didn't look as good as we thought they have at this point in years past. So very much looking forward to see the outcome of that one.
Great Northern Conference, 3 games tomorrow and then 5 games coming up on Friday. And Tom Field tomorrow night, Wausau East will have their home opener against La Crosse Logan. Big step up in terms of size of the opponents, and this is going to be an interesting one for East. They went to La Crosse last season and had a bit of a rough go of it.
Yeah, they were doing the old Meet the Lumberjacks tonight when I drove by Tom Field, so they were getting their first steps out there and getting ready. But this should be a good matchup, right? I mean, East, I think, went down there, took their lumps. Might have been a weather-related game last year, too, if I recall right.
Yes, it was.
But I'm sure La Crosse Logan looks to come up here and kind of stay on the right track as they head into their conference. And East is looking for some revenge and kind of getting ready to tell the rest of the Great Northern Conference that they're for real and going to start 2-0 this year.
And actually, Logan last week had a shutout. They beat Ellsworth 12-0. So
Which traditionally is an outstanding football program as well. So
I'm very curious to see if East, again, I had a chance to see them. As I said, I was impressed with the look of this team. And I think that's something that is important, that, you can tell when the kids are in the weight room a little bit more than they have been. So this will be, I think, a bit of a measuring stick for the East football program. Merrill at Crandon. Merrill had a tight one with Crandon last season in Merrill. Crandon had a rough go of it last week against Tomahawk. Merrill had a rough go of it against Osceola. Never an easy trip to go to Crandon. No. But Merrill, I think, would love to get a W before getting into conference.
Yeah, I think for sure when you look at the fact that what Tomahawk did to him last week, I think Merrill needs to go up there and take care of some business, or obviously that conference starts to shake out a little bit as well.
Sturgeon Bay and Anago. And the Anago Red Robins playing at Schofield Stadium, trying to bounce back from their loss against Northland Pines. And again, this is, I think, good scheduling. Again, they're giving themselves, there was a good game last week. It was 14-14 till late until Pines won it in Anago. I think, again, these programs, with the numbers issues they're having, they need these kind of games to try to build a foundation.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Wausau East play Sturgeon Bay a few years ago early in the season? So, and I think those were competitive games. So good opportunity for Coach Schofield to get in the win column this week.
And then Friday night, Mosinee is at Menasha, and we talked a lot about Mosinee. And whenever you go to that part of the state, you know it's going to be a challenge.
Well, and I have no idea how Menasha is this year, but I almost, when Coach Stoffel was talking about it, I think he might have underplayed a little bit how good of a program Menasha is. I mean, I've watched in the last 10 years, I've seen Menasha in more than one state championship football game at Camp Randall. So that is a heck of a program. So that I'm very interested to see how that one plays out.
Menasha lost to Plymouth last week by a score of 38-12.
Interesting.
Wittenberg-Burnhamwood at Tomahawk. Both teams come in with a little spring in the step after very good Week 1 performances.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you would think over historically that Whitburn would come into this one as a big favorite, but a great opportunity for Tomahawk to take another step in the positive direction.
Medford, another tough matchup. I mean, they trek to Onalaska. They're very familiar with Onalaska. They face each other every year early in the regular season, and so very often in the postseason as well. But I think what the Coach Stoffel said. And I talked to somebody from Medford in the spring when Wausau West played a baseball game and talked to their radio guy. And he said that this year that there were some holes, but they had some really good younger players coming as well. And sometimes those younger players, they're going to get an opportunity this year from Medford. How quickly they adjust is probably the key to whether or not they're dangerous as we get into the conference season. But it's tough when you throw these young players against really good programs.
Yeah, and Onalaska certainly fits that bill. Definitely have been improving over time. I'm starting to wonder if Medford's looking to get in the Mississippi Valley down there with going Holman and Onalaska back to back. But I think you're spot on with that. I think Medford's young players are going to get the opportunities to do some really good things this year, probably against the Anagos and the Merrills and the Rhinelanders of the world. It would be tough for those kids to show up against a program like Onalaska. So
real quick, as a coach, you know that when you see young, talented players, freshmen and sophomores, especially as you get into the larger divisions, you have to be very careful in those situations, don't you?
Yep, it's very appealing, no matter what you see. But at the end of the day, there is, and this goes the same at the Division I college level, right? There is a really big difference between a 14 and a 15-year-old and a 17 and an 18-year-old, physically, mentally, quite honestly, even emotionally, and that's even more true at the college level. So you have to do it. I think you have a better opportunity to do it in some of these smaller divisions when you look at maybe what the size and physicality matchup might be. Not that there isn't tough, aggressive, strong football in those conferences, but when you get into some of those more mismatches. But at the Division I level, when you talk about the Big Rivers and the Fox Valley and the Wisconsin Valley, that's a tough situation to put a kid into. But you look at DC Everest last year, and you look at freshman offensive lineman, second team all conference.
Ferrario.
Yeah, you look at. There's an instance where he was ready to play football and benefit from being on a really good football team. So
the other games, the northern games in the GNC, Ashland at Lakeland, Hayward at Rhinelander. Let's jump ahead because we'll run out of time before we know it. CWC Large, because I want to get to some of these games. Ooh. You got Edgar and Stratford. You talk about Stratford, they're not used to losing. They lost last week, and now they got Edgar coming up. I expect Stratford to come out and play really tough football.
And this probably going to prove me way wrong because that's usually what happens. But we talk about this game every single year and say you throw out the records. It's only week 2, so there really aren't any records. But people are probably starting to think that Stratford's down a little bit this year, right?
Doesn't take much, does it?
Right. Edgar's still got a butt in there, so they're probably thinking they're looking for their three-peat, and you would come into this with Edgar as the heavy favorite. I would be really careful thinking about that. Yeah. It's at Stratford. This is one of those, the worst part about this game is that it's played in week 2 instead of week 7, 8, or 9, but going to be a great one, I'm sure.
I wish they played this one on Saturday.
Yeah. They'd probably pack them up, too.
It would be fun to see a game like that. Auburndale at Marathon. And again, Marathon had a really good win. It sounds like there's a lot of positivity with Coach Dinkle. Auburndale has been so good in recent years. And this has become the rivalry in the Merriwood. And now it's a non-conference game in football, but in everything else, I found out it's in wrestling too. I knew it was in boys basketball. I knew it was in baseball. It's just it's everywhere. It's such a great game. And
Auburndale had a heck of a basketball team.
Yeah, so it's like there's a great chance here for Marathon to try to get off to a 2-0 start before that tough conference gets underway.
Yeah, I think Coach Dinkle proved last week that what they did in the offseason is made some positive changes, and this will be a really nice next step from an opponent standpoint to see where they're at.
You have Colby and Abbotsford. That's always a fun one because it's the old across the street, because anytime we go there, you get off on the exit, you turn left, you're in Colby, you turn right, you're in Abbotsford. But for Abbotsford, I tell you, that looks like a tough matchup based on what Colby did last week and what Abbotsford had against Loyal Greenwood.
Yeah, really good matchup. Abbotsford plays a really good style of football. I'm interested to see as we move forward if some of those names from last year who didn't graduate start to surface in that stat sheet.
You have Amherst at Winnebago Lutheran, Wyowega Fremont at Iola Scandinavia, Neilsville Granton at Loyal Greenwood, and Pittsville at Spencer Columbus. Anything you want to add about those games? Because those are kind of a little bit further outside our area.
I would just say I was surprised at Spencer Columbus last week. I thought they put forth what was the game? What was the matchup?
That was against Auburndale.
Yeah,
35-27.
That score was a little closer than I expected it from a Spencer Columbus. So I would say I'll be interested to see who they are this year.
And real quickly, I would say the Wyowega Iola game has the ingredients of being entertaining.
Yes, yeah.
You got Assumption at Peppa Almond and Pacelli at Parkview Albany. Again, those are the only two Merowith CWC teams that don't play crossovers with the big schools. And Assumption and Pacelli both, again, the numbers issues are still there. So
Yep, I don't know anything about Parkview or Pepin, but this might be good opportunities for Assumption and Pacelli to get wins if they
And
can.
looking at the 8-player, and again, the team that we kind of keep an eye on, because I'll be at Newman Catholic Friday night, it'll be a little history being made. It'll be the first time under the lights, the renovated Balliet Field, brand new artificial turf. There's going to be a lot of alumni there. They're going to have some special activities there, and we'll have the game live on 98.9 WXCO starting at 6:35. I have to say, in total transparency here, that the most entertainment may be when the alumni come out there, because Wild Rose had a real rough go over. They lost 66-8. Newman won 33-0. The Cardinals are in a pretty good position to get that. Make the christening of the new renovated field a pretty good one.
Yep, and I would add, I look at that field every single day. I've watched it develop over the course of the last 6-8 months, whatever it's been, and it looks absolutely outstanding. I'm very excited for Newman to be not only play at home on a beautiful facility, but be able to play under the lights. That's got to be very exciting for Coach Micklig and the Cardinals.
And for folks listening in Athens, they will be home on Friday night taking on Thorpe. And that'll be, I think, an interesting game. Thorpe has had some really good 8-player teams in recent years. Athens got off to a really good start last week. The new head coach at Rib Lake has a tough one. Have to go face Coach Rosemeyer and Gilman on Friday night. He probably said, why couldn't that have been the week 1 game that we didn't even have to play?
Probably didn't like the thought of that when he was at Athens. Probably doesn't like it anymore when he's at Rib Lake.
And then, of course, there are other 8-player games, but really outside our area. I wanted to leave a few minutes here to kind of talk about week 2, because you've been through it so many times. There's that old adage. I wanted to ask you, is it true or not that you make the biggest gains between week 1 and week 2? Is that true, or is that sort of an old wives' tale?
Well, I can't say if it's true or not. I think that would be the coach's hope, is that you would make, I don't know if it's the biggest gain, but that you would make a big gain, right? Like you said, no matter how good or bad, my experience over 20 years of coaching is that when you walk away, like, I'll use the Warriors as an example, with a really nice win and you feel really good about it and the stats look great or whatever, it's oftentimes when you go back and look at those films and say, well, that probably, oh yeah, there's that, and alignment and execution, you can get away with some maybe missteps or sloppiness or whatever. So you watch that film and you really do zoom in on those areas where you can make improvement. And oftentimes in those close games, tough losses, you get really frustrated after the game. And when you go watch that film, you think, you know what, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was. And we were right there. And if we just change these little things, it's going to look a lot better. So win or lose, I think everybody kind of knows now that they've seen somebody wearing a different colored jersey what they need to do to get better. So the opportunity is probably the greatest to make a big jump from week 1 to week 2.
And real fast, something you, I think, also mentioned at some point during this show, some of the teams that may have had weaker opponents will face stronger opponents this week, and maybe some of the teams that played stronger opponents will get a chance with weaker opponents. You have a better feel for some of these teams as well.
Right. With all the crossovers in the CWC large and small and the Big Rivers and the Wisconsin Valley, these games really do start to paint the picture of how things are going to stack up. So really looking forward to seeing the outcomes.
We'll see you next week.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
We'll be back next Wednesday for another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on WXCO.